I'm curious if you did, how many years did you do later for NBC?
I did later for 6 years, from 88 through 94. And it's one of my biggest regrets that I left it when I did. I certainly couldn't still be doing it, but I could have done it for 10 or 12 years instead of 6. There was a lot on my plate at that time. My children were young. I was commuting very often between St. Louis and New York. And there was a lot of preparation. I love doing the show. And it's very gratifying that it has a new life now on YouTube and people seem to really appreciate it. Um, it was a show that I think, generally speaking, had a very high level of quality, and it had a texture to it, a
Yeah.
wide variety of guests from different walks of life. And we had what you don't have now. No one was in your ear going, make it quick. Uh, it was half an hour with one guest. If the guest was good enough, you brought him or her back the next night. You know, you did a double or even a triple. Some guests enjoyed doing it so much they came back multiple times. And even then, in the 80s and 90s, I'd hear from guests, this is different than other shows. That's why I do it. It's not going to be a soundbite. I don't have anything to promote. I'm just here to have a thoughtful conversation. So I wish I had done it for a longer period of time than I did.
Is that a format that you think could work on TV today, or are those like kind of casual conversations more reserved for podcasts now?
I think podcasts, the best of them, have stepped into that space.
Yeah.
Done a good job. I don't know. I don't know that it would. Charlie Rose had a show, but that was on PBS. That was different. No bells and whistles. I don't know. But
Why do you say that
the,
you couldn't be doing it today? Is it just logistics, or is it something with the content?
Well, it's several things. It's the stage of my life. What are my energies? I mean, when I was in my 40s, I was preparing to do sports and preparing to interview 4 or 5 guests on a Monday in New York before getting on the 7:15 TWA, which doesn't exist anymore, flight back to St. Louis. And I was able to do all that, to do it with enthusiasm and to do all the research and to still, have a bounce in my step when I went into the studio. It's harder to do that in your 70s than in your 40s.
Sure.
So that's one factor. But there's also this. I was connected in some way to almost everyone I interviewed. I guess I'm kind of an old soul because it wasn't just the contemporaries. Like, let's say you're going to talk to Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen. If I talked to Don Amici, who I think was the oldest guest, whose movie career began in the 1930s, somehow I knew something about it to begin with.
Yeah.
I was familiar with almost every guest, and then I supplemented it with the excellent research that the great later staff gave me. Now, today, could I interview Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran? Yeah, I could. Could I interview Drake? Yeah, I could. I could do a competent professional job. But would I be organically connected to it the way I was to 90% of the guests on later? I wouldn't. So therefore, even if you gave me the time and the energy to do it, it's not my time anymore. When I was in my late 30s to mid 40s, my sensibility was pretty close to a cultural bullseye. And now it wouldn't be. Nor should it be. That's the way the world works. That's the way time passes.
Was it difficult doing a late night interview show like that without a live studio audience to kind of provide the laugh track?
No, in most cases, it actually worked to our advantage. And we had a lot of comedians on.
Yeah.
When they got a laugh, you knew it was earned. And there was something almost conspiratorial about it. Don Rickles is on, or Seinfeld, or Mel Brooks, or whomever, and the crew is laughing. And you can hear the crew laughing. Those are earned laughs. We did a few shows in front of a studio audience, and it worked out fine. I remember Gary Shandling being on in front of a studio audience. But by and large, doing it the way we did it, I think felt more intimate. And the person didn't feel as if they had to perform. Richard Lewis was a guest many times. There was never a studio audience when he was a guest. The late, great Richard Lewis. And he seized upon the format because it was so open-ended and he just free associated. And people who watch it now on YouTube say, I laughed my ass off. They didn't need an audience laughing to cue them to laugh. It's funny on its own merits. And also, I think what it did with comedians like Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld is to comedy what Tony Gwynn or Ted Williams are to hitting. Some people are funny, but they can't explain why. Some people can hit, they can't really explain why. Ted Williams could deconstruct hitting. So could Tony Gwynn. Jerry Seinfeld could deconstruct comedy down to the syllable. That's why this word has to go in front of that word. That's why this joke is better after that joke rather than before that joke. The whole thing, down to the syllables, he understood and could explain. It made him a great guest, but also a different guest for me than he was for Letterman or for Carson. And I think the audience, including his fans, appreciated that. And it was true of so many of our guests. They got a different view of that person than they might have gotten in the shows or interviews that they ordinarily would see them.